let's start. So a little late starting, but wonderful to see the whole room. And welcome everyone. Not so sorry. People I've known the last 35 years of my life. My cohort from 1988. People I've worked with. People who I have badged on LinkedIn to come to. So welcome everyone. And it's brilliant to have all of us together in a room, seeing each other face to face, over a glass of wine and sushi, which may not be the choice for everyone, I'm afraid, but some people like it. We'll switch next time and do something different anyway. So before I say anything more, I just want to thank the outgoing community, the outgoing council, who have kept the society going through thick and thin over many years. John Dick is here, he's our outgoing secretary and treasurer. We have a round of applause. Yes. Was our Cambridge secretary, passed away to Fiona. So thank you very much for all you've done for society and kept it going. And most importantly, giving me the freedom to shape the society for the future as well, and giving that absolute freedom, you're always there when I needed your support. So the society, well, all of you I'm sure know, started in 1883, and it's only stopped twice up into recent times. Once in the First World War, and then again in the Second World War, until COVID happened, and then all activities ceased. And it's especially hard for a medical society, because obviously lots of us are people on the front line, working extremely hard, we're all exhausted and burnt out. So trying to get the enthusiasm up again, get people back to seeing each other and doing more collaborative events, it was this challenge, myself included. However, a number of things happened that changed my mind. The first thing that happened was I had a phone call from the clinical dean, Paul Wilkinson, who some of you may know, he's a child psychiatrist, who's a clinical dean at Edinburgh, at Cambridge at the moment. And he was saying that some of the final years, students were really struggling with lockdown, they were going up to these placements, weren't getting any support, they were really struggling, a lot of them were going to give up medicine. So when I did my cohort in 1988, a few of us did alternative careers, but it was like out of a cohort of 200, 250, maybe 2 or 3 people gave up medicine at the get-go, they didn't become doctors. Now it's a much higher number, maybe 10 or 20 didn't even start as house officers. And I mentored informally some of these people about to graduate, some of the F1s and F2s, and what they said was that all through their lives they've been best in primary school, best in secondary school, A-stars all the way, they went to Cambridge, they excelled, they did all these amazing sports and all these other things that were amazing, and then they land somewhere, whether it's Ipswich or Ealing or wherever they land, or Kingston where I work, and all of a sudden they're treated so badly. By the rota coordinators, by the managers, by some of the nurses, and everyone just treats them as if they're worthless, absolutely worthless and hopeless. And that's why a lot of them give up medicine. They want to go and work for Google. They want to get into something more interesting. So I realised that it's so important that we have a really vibrant community. So we can actually say to people, it is tough those first few years. You are treated badly. All of us I'm sure had horrible households and stories, but we at least were part of the firm, and at least we were part of something that we didn't have anymore. So I thought one of the big reasons for the society to exist is to mentor and support and encourage our younger graduates who are coming through, because they may be the ones that are looking after us and we're older. That's the other big influence I had was just talking to friends of mine, my vintage, who had struggles through the COVID period, at work, at home, losing loved ones, giving up medicine, getting non-COVID, all sorts of things happened to various people I know, and it was only through the support of each other that we all got through. I realised if we could do that on a bigger scale and support each other, that'd be really powerful. So, the thing is that we are actually a big number. I've been doing a lot of work at the university and the medical school, because they want to get much more engaged with us as graduates now, because they've got a massive anniversary coming up in 2026, which is the 50-year anniversary of Edinburgh as a clinical school. So a massive celebration, and want many alumni to be involved. So they actually did a census this summer of all the medical graduates who have done part 1 or part 2 or clinical at Cambridge. And it's actually 17,000 of us around London, around the UK, around the world. 17,000, of which 5,500 live in the London area.
Oh, wow.
So we are a big community and we can make a difference, both helping each other, but also helping shape how the NHS is run, or politicians think about doctors and the rest of it. So I think we can be a powerful force together. So we're working really well with the medical school, the university, and so forth to actually build us into a vibrant community. I'm going to speak out to Fiona, who's our Cambridge secretary, just to tell you a little about what's happening in the Cambridge front. And she's been amazing at getting all the graduating class signed up for the society. We've got at least one of them who's signed up at the thing, so that's good.
Yeah. Thanks very much, John. So, my name is Fiona Cornish. I'm a GP in Cambridge. I was at Trinity Hall, then I went to St Thomas's, and then pretty soon went back to Cambridge in 1985. Been there ever since. So I'm delighted to have taken over as the Cambridge secretary. Been working with John trying to revive things for the society. Been in touch with the Dean of the Clinical School, Paul Wilkinson, and that's where I attended the final year student lecture and got you all to click on the QR code, so well done for coming. And one of the things that I'm interested in finding out tonight is how many of you would be interested in reviving the dinner, in the annual summer dinner in Cambridge. So we normally have, very convivial surroundings of the college, an eminent speaker, recruited by an eminent president, an eminent member, and it's all very jolly, and we have a nice dinner. So I was just hoping that we could revive this in 2024. So maybe a show of hands of people who would be interested.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's very inclusive. Yeah. And another thing we're going to try and do is, if there are events in London which it's difficult for Cambridge people to get to, we thought we'd have them live streamed in Cambridge with drinks and just at a gathering, and then we could share it if people felt they couldn't get to London to the event. We've identified a medical graduate who has now gone into a more commercial area of medicine who is interested in sponsoring. So he's currently in Argentina, but I'm going to meet him in January, and we're hoping he will sponsor something in Cambridge. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, and it'll be brilliant. So next time we have an event, maybe here, we'll be live streaming to Cambridge. So, a few quick thank yous. Thank you to the caterers. Noel has made sushi on site for all of us, and I think you're looking pretty incredible for those of you like sushi. Thank you to Terry and the film crew and the photographers and all the people, because the reason that's so important is because we all know when we get emails, we're asked to click on things, we don't necessarily do it, but when we see something that actually captures us, a video, a picture, that can make all the difference. So we thought it was very much worthwhile investing in both to give people a real sense of what this community is about, but also we're going to build up a library of these talks and discussions that can be used in all different sorts of ways by people who are teaching about your professional career. So we're going to have a library of these events. It's really important that we have a record, a video record, but also if we can't make it tonight, you can see it on the website. We're going to have edited highlights, and I'm hoping that over time, people will join and we'll have more members who take an active part. I'd also like to thank some of the people on the council. So Simon Chowdhury is sitting at the back, who's our secretary, London Secretary and Treasurer, who has been I've gone to a lot to help me. Nahi Khan, who's one of my they've all volunteered, they've all given up their time. I think they felt sorry for me doing all of this, but they did that. Someone who's not here tonight, but his partner is here. Justin Kaler, who's at Cambridge in our year. I met him when I was doing my fellowship in New York, and he's been an amazing friend, but more importantly, he knows all about tech. And all about how to mailing lists and how to do all these things I didn't know how to do. So he's been doing all of that, and so Cecilia, on behalf of society, can you thank Justin for all that he's done for society? They're not here, I don't think, from Denton. So to get a sponsorship deal, to get all this to happen, to get all the things that happened on social media that we're going to be doing, unfortunately, we need to raise money, we need to raise funds. Somebody who very kindly donated to make it happen. Thank you all for your donations. But we need to get some commercial sponsors. And for that to happen, we needed to get legal advice and contracts to be drawn up. There's a 6-month process to do that. You can imagine the legal cost of doing that. Luckily, we live in London where there's lots of top law firms do pro bono work. And I put our hat in the ring for pro bono legal work. And one Denton's and Matter law firm agreed to do all the pro bono legal work for us. So unfortunately, I think Annabelle's here, she, on the associates at Denton's done all our legal work, all the contracts and everything, all the due diligence. So we're really grateful. It's just a lesson to me. I didn't know that you could tap city law firms for pro bono wherever you can. And do a good pitch, and they'll do it for you. So amazing. And I'm about to go to our sponsors, because that leads me to our sponsors. So we've got 2 sponsors here tonight. I will start with Cavendish Medical first, because they have basically paid for tonight as far as the event. So, the reason this partnership is so important is because it was the thing that actually gave me the faith that we can actually do this. They're the first people I talked to, John and Deb, he was our outgoing treasurer, to actually put me in touch with Guy. We had meetings in their HQ around the corner from here, and they believe in what we're trying to do, supporting doctors, helping doctors, building relationships with doctors. So they very kindly have sponsored tonight. I'm hoping they'll carry on by the sponsorship going forward. And Guy's going to say a few words in a minute. Other sponsors are sitting here, Top Doctors. And I'm on Top Doctors. I've probably been through about 10 or 15 different people who may have sponsored us, and I just thought, well, let me just speak to my Top Doctors rep. And he passed it through to HQ, and lo and behold, I got a meeting with Selena and the rest of the team. They really believe in what we're trying to do. They really believe that doctors do need support, doctors do need to network, doctors do need to have a community, and they have become our principal sponsor. So they sponsored us for over 3 years. So I'm very grateful for them. So thank you so much. We got these bags, so we kept them all the way out. So come up to us, it's very trendy around London. And I must say, special thanks to Alex, who's actually been from Barcelona this afternoon just to be here So I'll kind of guide to say a few words on Cavendish Medical, and then John goes.
We are
yes.
really delighted to be able to establish a relationship with the society, and I'm very happy to sponsor tonight's event. It's been really great to really have some established relationships with many of the Cambridge alumni, and we hope to continue to expand our network there. For those of you who don't know what we do, we provide support to senior medics. And we provide an ongoing relationship to a very special and very close family relationship with them. The panel today are going to be discussing what they would tell their younger self, and this message really resonates with us because the way in which we run our practice is towards supporting people throughout their careers, helping them make very important life decisions, both personally and through their own businesses. And we work closely with them at all stages of this journey, leading them into retirement and beyond. I'm here with my colleague Simon Bruce today. We are two of the senior financial planners at Cavendish Medical, having worked alongside each other and senior medics for the last 20 years. Please do come and introduce yourselves and we look forward to meeting more of you as the evening progresses.
And I was going to say a few words as well. It was originally from my own great care, which you've all heard of, and now the top doctors.
Thanks. I haven't come into the last area, but I have come from Oxford. But please don't and so, yeah, I haven't known John on that one either, other than many people in the room. I've only met John a few weeks ago, but already I can see his passion and enthusiasm for this project. And we are so keen on this as well, because really it's about using technology to support doctors, which is what Top Doctors does. But here, hopefully, we can connect doctors, experienced doctors and graduates, and use technology to support that as well. And just one quick aside, we're actually in what's called the third healthcare revolution, and the first was when public health was first introduced in the 1850s, and there's a sort of, I guess, monolithic bureaucracy. And then in the 60s, we got the second healthcare revolution, which was when we started to do things like organ transplants and chemotherapy and knee replacements, and build big hospitals. And this was technology driven at the time. And now the third healthcare revolution is about three things: knowledge, citizens, and digital technology and the internet. We've all got one of these, and that has really changed the dynamic of healthcare. And so hopefully we can use this to help connect people to provide technology that supports providing better care, and really that's what we're all trying to do together. So delighted to be part of this society for the next few years, and glad to be.
Right, so on to the panel. So I'm not going to say anything about the panel, they're going to introduce themselves, and they should introduce themselves, but I want to introduce our panel chair. And the reason I asked Nathalie to be our panel chair is that she actually invited me to be on the panel about a year ago, talking to state school students about whether they should go into medicine as a career, since very Rome, talking about medicine for 17-year-olds, which was a great evening, and hopefully we gave some inspiration, but also some reality to some of the students that are there. So Nathalie's had a very, very interesting career. She's a co-founder of a new company called Coherent Healthcare, which helps healthcare professionals set up and run private practices in the most cost-effective way possible. So she's very much into technology, and she's also done other companies as well. And the reason we became friends and got to know each other is that someone I was at Manual with was you worked at Quills, is your boss at Quills, and that's how we got to know each other. She ran her career at Goldman Sachs to be the CEO of 2 tech companies, and is an active board member and school governor. So she's got lots of experience. She's got Harvard MBA, and there's a big link between Harvard and Cambridge, so you're an honorary Lettsom. She also went to Autmun. So, over to Nathalie.
Thank you very much, John. We'll talk a lot about imposter syndrome, but I must say I have that amongst doctors. So, without further ado, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah.
I'm Alison McLean. I'm a consultant radiologist. I went up to Girton College in 1968, before many of you were born, I suspect, and qualified as a doctor in 74, which means that next year, 2024, I will have been in clinical practice for 50 years. I'm still, I don't need applause, I'm still working, and I still love it. And I come from a very privileged and lucky generation for whom medicine was wonderful, a wonderful life, a wonderful career, a wonderful experience. I know there are others in this room who share that view. That's enough for the moment, I think, yes?
Hi, I'm Al Santhouse. I went to Emmanuel in 1986 and was sort of lost in medicine for a few years, and then post-medical membership did what I ought to have done right from the start, which was psychiatry. And And I'm a consultant in neuropsychiatry at the Maudsley Hospital, and I love it too. So there you are, 2 out of 3.
That's a pretty high percentage. I'm Krista Farrell. I am a neurologist. I matriculated in Trinity in the year 2000. I'm from Trinidad, so I moved from Trinidad to England to go to university, and I've been here ever since. Yeah.
Thank you for that. It's wonderful to have different generations, all different specialties. Alison, I think we'll start with you. Could you maybe tell us about your childhood, your background, what you were interested in growing up, how you got into medicine?
Okay. Well, I grew up in a very sort of ordinary middle-class family in Hull. And so that's where I went to school. We had very little money, actually. It was post-war. My father had just taken a job just to settle down after the war. And so in the family, we were always roused when the bills came in, you know, the telephone bill and the electricity bill. And so that was a sort of influence on my life. And I was obviously quite bright. And my mother she was quite sort of, she had aspirations, and she wanted a daughter who went to Cambridge. There was a girl in her village in Birkenhead where she grew up, and Maudie Roberts had gone to Girton College, Cambridge. And for my mother, Maudie Roberts was this icon. And so I guess I wanted to be Maudie Roberts. And so I decided that I wanted to do medicine. You know, there was always that choice: are you going to do arts, are you going to do sciences? I liked sciences. I was curious. I was a very curious child. I liked to know how things worked. There was nobody medical in our family at all. So, and from the school I went to, there was nobody who'd gone into medicine, nobody who'd gone to Cambridge. So, you know, one was sort of breaking new ground. But I decided I was going to be a doctor and go to Cambridge. That was where I was going at the age of 14, and that's what I did.
And I guess I'll skip to a question I was going to ask a bit later, but it sort of relates to this. It sounds like you didn't have a mentor or someone who influenced you at that.
No, it was all completely self-directed. I guess I was passionate about it. It's very hard to look back at your younger self and to remember what your motivations were and what you really felt about it. But, you know, I was absolutely fascinated by medicine. And so I think it was really self-directed. There was a GP who I thought was quite good, and he sort of pushed me a bit. But that's probably it. There wasn't any great mentor, certainly at that stage in my life.
And how about you, Al?
We've all got a Maudie Roberts, haven't we? So much hit chat. So I grew up in suburban Manchester in a Jewish family that was sort of quite aspirational, I guess, which was sort of relevant to why I ended up doing medicine, which is basically my parents made me, which is not really a great reason to do medicine. I mean, you're meant to, at the interview, you're not meant to say, I want to help people, but my parents made me wasn't a great idea either. I can't remember what I did actually say, but in fact I do, as it happens. That's a whole other story. You know, my childhood, I remember one thing, which is I had an older sister who used to get this magazine called My Guide. I don't know if you ever remember it. There's a whole stable of them. Blue Jeans, yeah, you know, it's a whole, come on. I know you read them. And they had a problem page with Cathy and Claire, it was called. And I remember I would flick through the photo love stories and everything, but I would go to the problem page and I would read the problem and cover up Cathy and Claire's answers and write my own answers down, age about 13, which I had, I mean, looking back now, and only now, I realize quite how weird that was. But at the time, I thought that that's just So all of that is a long-winded way of saying that when I meandered into psychiatry, it was a round peg and a round hole. It's always what I should have been doing. So, yeah.
Krista, you grew up an ocean away.
I did. The Atlantic Ocean, yes. So yeah, I grew up in Trinidad. I did have medics in my family, though. So I suppose, even though I don't think I thought that at the time, but I guess they must have influenced that to some degree. So I had, an aunt and two uncles on my mother's side of the family who were all doctors. And surprisingly, they didn't try to talk me out of becoming a medic. In retrospect, I do think that was a bit strange. But anyways, so no, ever since I was little, I think I wanted to be a doctor since I was about 12. And I always really loved science, neuroscience in particular. So I thought I wanted to be a neurosurgeon because I thought they were, neurologists that did operations as opposed to being sort of general surgeons of the head, which I sort of later discovered. And then I kind of, I always wanted to go to Cambridge. I don't recall why or how this particular concept came into my head. But when I was 12, we came to the UK just for a holiday, and we went to Cambridge, and we were punted down the river by a girl who was a Trinity medic. And so I think it was from that point that, okay, Trinity College, it's a big one, lots of money, this girl is really nice. And that was where that idea and plan sort of came from.
Brilliant. Alison, we'll go back to you and imagine back to when you were a junior doctor and imagine you knew then what you know now. Do you think you would do anything differently?
No. It's clearly there's a long pathway. The thing about medicine is it gets so much better as you get older that you learn. It's very difficult at the beginning because you just don't know enough and you're very stressed. And when you come to the imposter syndrome, you think, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing here. And Nick pointed out to me earlier that I couldn't get a drip into people when I was a junior doctor. And all of those skills that you learn along the road, and gradually that level of confidence comes to you, and you just feel better about it. It's much more enjoyable. So if I was talking to my youngest, I would just say, stick with it. Don't give up. This is medicine. Well, for me, medicine has just provided a wonderful. It's so much more interesting than anything else, it seems to me. You're dealing with people. You've got a way into connecting with people, and I think people are probably the most interesting thing we have out there in the world. Just talking to people, listening to them, getting their stories, seeing what's going on. I was talking to a friend the other day who had a daughter who'd got a degree in philosophy from Oxford, and she was working for Amazon and looking at balance sheets. And I thought, how boring. So it's remained interesting.
Are all doctors good with people? Because on the panel that...
No, there are pathologists.
Well, they need to listen. They need patients to speak. So, but interesting that's the element that you enjoy the most.
Yeah, I think so.
How about you, Al?
It's a really funny one that, think about that question. You said you got different generations on the panel, and my generation, it never occurred to me that I had choices in life. Not really. I was of a generation where you didn't get an exam remark, you were given the result, and that was what you got. And everything that happened. There was a sense in which you sort of did largely what you were told. And by the time I was a junior doctor, I was so beaten down, it just didn't occur to me that I could do anything else but grit my teeth and keep going. And I remember it was tough, really tough for a few years. I think every generation is affected in a different way by how bad it is to be a junior doctor. I think the current generation are just sort of fragmented and lost and in debt. But in my generation, it was the 130 odd hour weeks and the just, would sleepwalk to work practically. And so I think, if I'd known it would get better, I would have enjoyed that period more. I was thinking maybe this was just my lot, this joyless self-sacrifice. And then it's, actually did get better. And I would also say that I am, well, I guess curious is a nice way, nosy is a different way of looking at it, but I'm interested in people and their lives. And as things have developed, I'm really glad I stuck it out.
During those tough times, did you have anyone to speak to?
No. And again, I think that was just a generational thing. You just took what life had to throw at you and you didn't make a fuss. You know, you didn't want to stick out for any reason, and that was really how it was. It might have been helpful, but I'm sure someone somewhere would have, you'd have felt that it would get back somehow. It was just of that generation. Yeah.
And Krista, how about you, if you were to think back?
I think if I were to think back, I would just say take it even slower, because I think similarly, you feel like you get on this treadmill and you just have to keep running. It's from one step to the next step to the next step, and you have to jump each hurdle, you know, the first time. And actually, you know, in some ways, I mean, yes, it's hard work, but in other ways, it actually is a quite enjoyable stage of your career because you're constantly learning, and I quite like being in on the deep end. You know, opportunities. I should have traveled somewhere, gone and worked somewhere different for a bit. Maybe even tried something, you know, not necessarily related to medicine for a couple of years, develop other skills that you can then bring back to the, you know, healthcare workforce. Because I think we're all, you know, all trained in a very similar way of, most people have taken a very linear path. And I do think there are downsides to that in terms of when you look at the health service as a whole. So I think, you know, I would have benefited personally. I think we would potentially all benefit if we all probably tried something a little bit different for a while.
And did you have a mentor or someone who influenced you as a junior doctor?
In retrospect, yes, but I don't think I quite realized at the time, because it's kind of one of those more sort of casual things. You know, I had one very good consultant, a guy called Perez, who would, like, you know, suggest things to me, but in a very kind of, he's a very sociable, you know, princess, you know, just, you know, been a public say, oh, Krista, you know, should you do this, or you should try that, or maybe apply for this job and things like that, and has continued to support me throughout my career. So yes, I have, but not in a kind of formal, come and sit in my office and let's talk about your career kind of a way.
And do you have that now?
Yes, well, we still work together, so yes. Or do you mean in a formal way?
No, informal, someone.
No. He's still around. He's still a very good friend.
Brilliant.
Yes.
How about you, Al? Do you have a mentor?
No, a mentor is always someone you think you ought to have, because when you write a column about it, you can talk about how wonderful this mentor was. There's people whose career I envied, which is not quite the same thing as a mentor. And when I was growing up, I didn't realize you didn't have to be a GP. I mean, that's how much I knew about medicine, more or less to the point that I applied to do it. So, but if it was someone, it would probably be my GP. And I remember, we all probably have those memories, just feeling better sitting in his office. Just feel like someone had the problem in hand and it was all going to be okay.
This is interesting. In business school, the first thing they tell you is find a mentor. So everyone approaches it very strategically. So going back to imposter syndrome, you know, Alison, with your incredible career, it's hard to imagine that you've ever felt that. Is it something that you've ever encountered?
Yes, of course. I think everybody feels at times in their lives that, what am I doing here? You know, I don't know enough to be in this position, or I've got nothing to say about it. I don't know whether women suffer it more than men. I suspect they possibly do. You might have a view on that. I don't. But I don't think I have it now. That goes too, I think, with age. Maybe when you care less about what other people think about you, it also helps that you can say what you think, or you know what you know, and you're more prepared to acknowledge what you don't know. And so I think it gets easier to ask when you're older, actually, because you know you've got a certain level of knowledge, but there are some things that you're not really sure about. So I think in some ways it does get easier to ask as you get older.
How about you?
I mean, the answer is definitely yes. I mean, and I think the only people that don't have imposter syndrome are actual imposters, in my view. You know, because everyone else who's normal, you know, does worry about whether they're good enough, or someone a bit clever is going to just chop their legs from under them. And I think in my life and in medicine anywhere, there's always this tension, isn't there, between being an expert in what you know and then being utterly bored by it and wanting to do something else that you don't entirely know about. So I always want to push myself, and when I do push myself, I feel like the world is going to come crashing around my feet, and I know I've done it to myself and no one feels sorry for me except for me. And of a great sort of theme of self-pity. But yeah, I mean, and I don't know, I mean, whether men suffer it less or more than women, I don't know, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't true.
Krista?
I would say, I mean, the same. I think everybody experiences it, especially in a career that's very, traditionally very hierarchical, and you make multiple transitions over the course of, your training and then coming out the other end. So, I mean, I guess, you're particularly, a junior doctor, you think, oh my God, this consultant knows everything. I remember looking at, one of the consultants using the tendon hammer, thinking, oh my God, like, how does he get all those reflexes? I know I was actually genuinely amazed. Well, this is something I could do now, like in my sleep. I could even need a tendon hammer. I could do it like with my, fingertips. So, at each stage, there's always these people that you look up and think, oh my God, they're so amazing. But then you become a consultant, then you realize that actually everybody has these islands of, ignorance, and, it's a matter of working in a way that is sort of collegiate, where, you feel that you are able to say, well, actually, I don't know the answer to this. And you don't feel, ashamed or embarrassed, and you just make the patient the priority to make sure that you get the best outcome for them. So, yeah.
I guess it's about creating psychologically safe spaces.
Yes. Yeah. I think that helps, for sure.
So this is kind of related, but Alison, if you had to think back to a terrible mistake that you've made or a challenging situation, can you share a bit about that?
Well, as a radiologist, one is very exposed. Our mistakes are out there for somebody to look back on and to say, oh, you missed that, So we are very exposed. But of course, and actually as radiologists, we're getting better at looking at those, of having sort of mistakes and errors and misses, meetings where we look at them and we learn from those. I think on a personal level, I once did something absolutely terrible. I had a really anxious patient who'd had a CT and had contrast, and she got reaction hives, and I wanted to give her intravenous Piriton, and she was very tense, very twitchy, and I'd wanted to try and calm her down, and I got the file and whatever, and anyway, whatever, I injected her with intravenous adrenaline. Not a good move. Not a good move. She survived. She got a bit more anxious. Yes. And that's the one and only MDU case I've actually had to deal with, and she got paid off. It was a terrible error, and I've never, ever not checked the ampoule that I was injecting
Ever again.
And so, you make these terrible mistakes, but by heaven, you learn from them. So we just have to acknowledge it. Radiology has got a 10% miss rate, 10% error rate. We miss stuff all the time. We get stuff wrong. And you just have to learn from that and accept it and acknowledge it.
We both live to tell the tales.
I nearly didn't, but anyway.
How about you, Al?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just listening to that story, and I think that living to tell the tale, those small margins, is actually what makes the difference between learning from it and being finished by a mistake. Yeah. But that's by the by. When I think of sort of mistakes I made, they're not been, I can't think of a single event where I was thinking that was just catastrophic, but just, when I think back about what I've done, and that quote from Polonius, to, this above all, to thine own self be true, which I never, it's advice I wish I'd given myself back then, but I remember sitting on committees because someone said I ought to, and it would look good if. And I remember thinking, the only good committee for me is one where I left without any action points by my name, when I could, when I could just go, because I wasn't that interested in how things worked or whatever. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And again, I learned from that. I learned that it's a terrible idea and I should never have done it. But it's all those broad brushstrokes. There are several others, by the way, but anyway, such as it is.
I mean, I think I'm sure everybody in the room has made a drug error of some description, just, with varying consequently, I remember giving a patient too much diamorphine because it was just like, had that list for like STEMIs that you had to like go through in your head. I was like, was an F1, it was like my first house job, being called to some patient and having this ECG and like thinking, oh God, she's having a STEMIs, I've got to do all these things. And I had this list of drugs in my head I needed to give. I didn't bother to look in a book, check the dose. It was just one of, those things you can't pass medical school without learning that list. Well, I clearly didn't learn it well enough. And I gave this woman too much diamorphine and she had this respiratory arrest like right in front of my face. But I mean, she had a bit of, but you give to reverse it now? I forgot. That's it. Thank you. It's been a while. And yeah, so similarly, it sort of ended okay. One time I prescribed myself as an IV fluid. I prescribed 1 litre of Krista Farrell over 8 hours. And the nurses actually said they didn't show me the chart until the morning because they said you must have been so tired when you did this that we just didn't even bother to call you back. So I do recall that. Of that nature, I think that's a little bit too that sort of spring to mind at the moment.
You're young yet.
I've got definitely more mistakes to come for sure.
Switching course, and maybe Krista, we'll start with you. Could you share a bit about what you've managed to do outside of your day job?
I do quite a lot of stuff. I suppose my hobbies sort of fall into 3 main categories. I really like dancing, I really like and learning languages, and I quite like music. So I play the piano. I've got a very nice piano teacher called Nadia, who's got like this perfect ear, even like over Zoom when I was playing over lockdown. I go to ballet, usually once or twice a week. I spend time learning languages. My children I send to a Chinese bilingual school, so I've learned a bit of Mandarin to try and help them with their homework. I really like learning Greek, French, Spanish. Yeah.
Very intellectually.
That's what I enjoy.
How about you, Al?
Well, I sort of longitudinally over my career, I've always wanted to do something different. I get bored quite quickly. And so for a long time, I ran a business in postgraduate psychiatry, which was quite fun. And then when the kids started growing up, I got boys, so I started to manage their football teams, which was, honestly, hell is other parents, by the way.
Yeah.
All the worst conversations I ever had were, I know he's not the best footballer in the world, but, and then they'd be trying to pick my team for me and tell me what position their kid should play in. And then I started writing as the kids grew up. So I published my first book last year, and I'm writing another book now. And I've sort of, I enjoy having written it more than I enjoy writing it. And going to sort of literary festivals and everything is actually a lot of fun. And day to day, just, I'm doing Duolingo, of course. Everyone does that now. Learning modern Hebrew, but I've been doing it for 2 years and I can't say a single sentence. So I don't know what that's telling us. Anyway, I'm doing it.
How do you have time for all that? Because you've got 4 boys.
Yeah, it gets really busy and yet I've lost the ability to relax, I think, is the problem. And I think it might actually be a problem. I get slightly sort of agitated and dysphoric if I'm not doing something. So, yeah.
How about you, Alison? You're a school governor.
Yeah, well, the first part of one's career, certainly for people of my age, we were really busy. We were working all the hours God sent. And so, at the beginning, there wasn't much time to develop other things. And I think it probably is better now. I think people probably do have a bit more time to think outside. When I was a young consultant, I was the medical columnist advisor on Woman's World. And I used to write a monthly column about, sweaty armpits. So that was quite entertaining. I quite enjoyed doing that. I had to stop that when we went to the States for a bit. But then, as my career's gone on and there's a bit more time, then you're right, I'm a school governor. And so I've been a school governor for the last 10 years. And that has just been an amazing experience. I'm a governor of a school called Reeds, which is in Surrey. And I'm happy to say that I've persuaded John to take over when I leave, because I've done it for 10 years and I probably should stop. But it's a wonderful school, and I've learned so much. I mean, getting into another profession, digging deep into the workings of a different profession, and looking at their sort of the way they operate, and the commitment and the expertise of people who work in schools, the teachers, and the relationships with the people. I've absolutely loved it, and I've learned so much from that. So, it's really nice at this stage in my career to be able, because I'm working less now, obviously, just to be able to do something else and to find out how other worlds work.
Krista, I've just, Al got me thinking about, you have 2 young kids, and how did you find that when you had your kids, and how quickly you had to return to work, and how you juggled that?
Oh, I was very happy to return to work, to be honest. Yeah, maternity leave is not, well, I don't know, some people might find it fun, but I didn't. I mean, I think you have to have some kind of support, whether it be parents or parents-in-law, or have the resources to pay a nanny, because otherwise we had a live-in nanny for 7 years. I think we only stopped having live-in nannies this year. And that was just because, by the time, particularly when I was a registrar, if I had to do night shifts, my husband would not be home from work by the time I needed to leave. So there needs to be somebody in the house. So, you just have to, you need those human resources. They just need to come from somewhere, whether you pay for them or whether they're from your own family network, to be able to manage. Otherwise, it is very challenging.
And Alison, I'm sure you had a similar experience with 2 kids.
Yeah, well, in those days, of course, one could get nannies a lot cheaper than you could get them now. And so, we had a live-in nanny. I took 12 weeks off, I think, for both kids, and went back to work. And I agree with you entirely. It's so much easier going to work than looking after children. People behave logically and do what you say. So, and I continue to work full time. If I was working now as a young mother, would I work less than I did when I was at that stage in my career? I don't know. I think it's a really difficult balance. I think it's really difficult when people take a year off for children, getting back into that, feeling the confidence to go back. And that's, I think, one of the things that we need to focus on, about how we support people coming back into the workplace after they've had a year off, because I think people do lose confidence with that. I always worked full time. Would I have enjoyed it more if I'd worked part time? I don't know. I think it's so difficult. You're trying to balance feeling really confident and engaged in your career against spending more time with your children. But they survived.
Yes.
So final question for Al and Alison before we open it up to the audience. So Al, if you were advising Krista at her stage of career, what is the one piece of advice you would impart?
I think it would, Krista's, I met for the first time tonight, but clearly prodigiously capable of lots of sorts of things. And I think 5 years into being a consultant is the sort of time when you start to think, what else should I do? Once you develop that expertise and mastery, you keep getting better, I think, as you get older. Certainly all the consultants that I most admired had the same quality, which is they're all older. Not all old consultants are great, but most good consultants got better with age. But I think doing exactly the same thing without an outlet for the next couple of decades or more could be a little samey.
Fantastic. And Alison, if you were advising Al?
I think boredom is one thing that we have to really be careful about. And I think it's much more challenging now when people are much more specialised. And so they get into one area and they're absolutely brilliant at that area. But, if you're doing the same thing time after time, week after week, year after year, that's why radiology was always so good, because it was such a broad field. You never got bored. There was always something different to do. So I think we have to fight against boredom. So clearly it's good to take on other things, to meet other challenges. I mean, you've talked about other challenges, whether that's management or whether that's training or whether that, education within medicine, or whether one diversifies out and takes on something more outside as you reduce your workload. Management's a tricky one, isn't it? A lot of people are sort of interested in putting a toe in the water with management, but many people find it very dispiriting experience. So I think you have to find what you're enjoying and really just try and keep finding things to love, because it's nice to get to the end of your career and to still love it.
What will you fill your time with now that you're stepping down from your governing board?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got lots to do. I've got my French lessons every week. I've got, I've got that. There's lots to do. Lots to do. And that's lovely, maintain a curious mind. That's the only thing that matters. Just stay curious about the world.
It's a great way to end off. So thank you very much to our panelists.
So opening it up to...
We've got 2 minutes because there's lots of sushi waiting to be eaten. And rain. So, Fiona, then Steve, and then Kate.
a question for you, Alison. You said you really like people. I was interested you went into
Radiology. That's why she still likes
You've got
people.
it completely wrong.
That's why she still
I
likes
deal
them.
with people all the time. I do a lot of ultrasound, and so every time, the wonderful thing about radiology is you've got a short time with people.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you go in, you take a history that other people have missed. I'm very good at taking a history. You find out exactly which way you make the psychological assessment of who they are, what they need to know, how much information do they need, and then you do the test. So there's lots of people involved in radiology. Well, I don't know whether it's less now. I mean, there are other radiologists here. Would you agree with me? I think,
I absolutely agree, but it's very nice that you see them for a certain...
Yeah, and then they go. And they haven't got your telephone number. So that's...
Many of us will have sympathy with the current group of doctors in training with pay erosion debts, bad rosters, and so on. We know that far fewer are doing voluntary training in the legal profession. What would you say to try and encourage them to stay with medicine, to stay in the NHS, to stay in post?
Well, I think we probably have to get a bit more political. I mean, we just have to change the system. The system is failing. The current health system is failing. And it's terrible what's happened to doctors and the morale and the sense that, they're not supported. They can go to another country, earn a lot more money, and just feel cherished in a way. We've stopped cherishing them. We've stopped looking after people. Now, whether we can do anything about that, I don't know. We can try. And your idea of mentoring and looking after people, the loss of the firm structure, the rotas that people are subjected to, I think it's the loss of control that you have over your destiny, which I think is so terrible. Whether we can do anything to reverse that, I don't know.
I would just add to that when I speak to the medical students, and they all say, I went on this ward round, and then I spoke to the registrar, I spoke to the consultant afterwards, and they all just told me to give up.
Give up medicine.
And you hear that quite a lot. And I'm saying that, well, they really, apparently people are sort of saying, don't do what I did. And I think there is burnt out, demoralised doctors are not a great advert for the profession that someone's going to go into. These people got A stars and everything all the way through, as you pointed out early on, and they do need to feel the love, or certainly feel they're in the upper tax bracket right from the outset. And then, because they can earn more and be looked after more elsewhere. And it's not the vocation that everyone liked to believe it was a generation ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody in the room probably feels the same about that. I mean, you can't set the barrier to entry to a profession up here and then pay people down here. But I don't know, it's difficult. I mean, I was on a leadership course last week, and it was like, I thought to myself, I'm never going on a leadership course with a bunch of doctors ever again, because everybody just complained and moaned the whole time. And it's just the culture of, discontent that we now have, that we somehow need to try as a collective to reverse somehow, so that they do feel a bit more motivated and interested and engaged. But I did actually at one point feeling quite restless myself, talking to a friend who was working in management consultancy when I considered that. And he said to me, Krista, actually, over half of the doctors who leave, particularly if you leave later in your career, they all come back. So, because I think you just don't realize what you have until you've lost it. And in the same way as I said before, you've spent your whole life on this one particular track. Very few people have tried anything else to know what do I value about this career. So, I actually tell them it's not a bad idea if they want to take a few months out and go and do something else, because then they'll realize, actually, I really do love medicine. It is a lot better, and I would want to, despite all the problems, want to come back and commit myself.
It's one of the few careers where there's always demand. You'll
Yes.
always have a job.
Yes, always have a job.
I'm just quite interested that I'm Kate, an IT manufacturing consultant. I'm just quite interested that both of you chose to return to work full time. Do you think that if you had strong female role models who were working less than full time, that might have influenced your decision? And just also to one of the things that we find in our anaesthetic and critical care training is that less than full time training is very much a much more valued option now for our trainees. And it's just what were your thoughts on less than full time training?
I think the world has changed markedly. I mean, I was head of training for a long time in radiology program, and I would say most of the women, because there were a lot of women then who went into radiology, most of the women went off and had babies while they were training and whatever, and they came back and worked less than full time. I think it works very well. I mean, I actually do think it works very well, and that's why you're saying, would I do it different? I don't know. For my generation, you were up there with the boys. You were not. It was seen to be a bit sort of pathetic, really, not to be there working full time. And so I think those attitudes have changed completely. Yeah. And I think for many women, if you're having a family, to work less than full time is a very, very good option, and we need to just be encouraging and supporting that. For me, it was a different time, really.
I mean, I would say for myself, I definitely had that option. And loads of my colleagues, were less than full-time trainees. But I had my first child when I had about a year and 3 months, a year and 4 months left until I finished. And I 100% just wanted to just get it done. I had my CCT date saved in my phone as like Emancipation Day. There was no way that, it had already been pushed back with these births, so I was like, there was nothing that was going to stand in the way of just getting it done. But I don't work less than full time now, though. I don't work full time now, so I am less than full time now. And I think being a consultant, you have a lot more flexibility in terms of how you can work as opposed to when you're a trainee. And there are also financial implications to going less than full time as a trainee as well, in terms of your pay progression. And I think that is something that women need to consider carefully as well.
One last question.
Thank you. My name is Adele. So I work with a lot of medical students at various stages, and they're all really passionate people. Some of them are doing a lot, and they're already making lots of contributions to society. But I do really feel quite conflicted thinking about their future going forward, because we are seeing increased competition for jobs. I think there's a very poor workforce planning in the sense that there's a big investment into increasing medical student numbers, but not necessarily jobs.
What jobs are
to match that. There's a lot of emphasis on the number of healthcare professionals and PAs and what kind of gaps they can fill in. So what do you think the future is for the medical profession? How can people try and actually support doctors that are training and progressing to avoid the situation where people are stuck or not really having much in the future? Because it does seem like it's heading that way. And every time you ask people the kind of question, they're just like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. That seems quite.
What's the answer? What is that?
What you're saying is that I think the way workforce planning is done is very reactionary, rather than thinking, actually, we're going to have executives who are start now planning, who's going to teach them, the graduate job is going to move forward with these things. And unfortunately, we don't have that sort of level of workforce planning. And that, so I think it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I was just going to make the same point on that, that workforce planning has always been a dreadful mess. You know, they never seem to get that right. I don't know whether it's just because it's literally an impossible thing to do, or, but you know, you can't sometimes anticipate changes like an interventional radiology that puts half of the cardiothoracic surgeons out of work or whatever. You know, there are things that happen where you might not have anticipated it, but it is a mess. I think, though, that I would just say one final thing, sort of like a meta point, which, picking up on what you said before, which is actually, you look at your life and you ask what you want from your life, and you want your life to have mattered in some way, a meaning, a purpose, a sense that you made a difference in the world. And you know, I remember reading the obituary of someone when I was just started out, and it looked very sanctimonious. He said the reward for working hard is the opportunity to do more. I mean, honestly, I was doing enough as it was, and I didn't feel like I needed that opportunity to do more. But now I can relate, at least, to what he said, which is that it is a privilege, and we don't really communicate that quite enough, to have really made a difference in people's lives. And to think that what you did mattered.
Thank you very much. I just say big round of applause for the panel. Great insight, and Nathalie for chairing it. I think you've got a whole BBC or Newsline coming up. Two last things to say before we go back and finish this issue. 2 dates for your diary, you put in your diary. Tuesday the 5th of March is the next event. And then the following one on that is Tuesday, June the 4th. March the 5th, June the 4th is Tuesdays. What we're going to be talking about? Well, some conversations I had earlier today. We're probably one that's going to be on workplace drama, dealing with toxic colleagues, toxic managers, and how we navigate that situation.
That's a good topic.
We're going to do a big health meets tech event. I mean, it involves negotiations with Google Health and YouTube Health to host 100 of us in their HQ, so that's hopefully in the autumn. We're also going to look at a big event called How to Fix the NHS.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we're going to have a panel discussion.
I don't think I'll be on the panel for that.
I have no idea.
Which is alternative careers. So some people who've left medicine to other things, which are barristers, they've started tech companies, got someone here started tech companies, all sorts of different things, and it inspires you an additional role of your medical career or leading together. But thank you all for coming tonight. On the way out, Simon and I have got these QR codes. You can scan those because you want. The membership one is to something we found it. The membership one is it's really easy. You scan that QR code, you can send that to 5 of your friends on your WhatsApp.
Okay.
So whatever. So let's enjoy it. And the LinkedIn one is we want to build our presence on LinkedIn. So we've got a page on LinkedIn, so you can scan that and automatically join our LinkedIn page. So without further ado, thank you all for coming. It's been a 2-year journey to get tonight off the ground, and as I said, it's the first of many events. We're going to do at least one event per term, and then also a Cambridge event as well. So thank you for coming tonight. Got lots of food and drinks to be there, and please please be our sponsors. Medical doctors, say hello to them, and I'll see you in the new year.
Well done.
Absolutely, yes.
Why not?
Thank you very much for sponsoring.
Well, it's right.
That's Englishly.
Oh, the movie.
Yeah.
Alastair.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Thank you so much.
You got to choose. You have to choose.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're the one that first